Hello! Welcome to another episode of GeekAut. I am your host for this week, Owen Mason. I have returned from my sickness, kind of. I might be pausing the podcast every so often, but you won't hear about that. I will be coughing in the background, and none of you listeners will be any the wiser. I am joined, of course, as always, by Al
Hello.
and Simone.
Hello.
I don't know why I did the sliding thing where I'm pointing at people, like on my left. On my left is Al, on my right is Simone, and it's really strange because none of you are actually here. It's on
You're
Skype.
practicing. You're just practicing for the live recording.
Yeah, exactly. I'm practicing for that. I wanted to first say before I continue, thank you, Avery, for taking over for me. It was a very enjoyable episode of the show. I'm not just saying that because of the show. It was actually very good. I like the topic you were talking about. It was great. I don't know if I've got much to contribute outside of what you actually talked about, which is cool. Because I've had experiences of that with people thinking that I'm not autistic because I don't act it, and it's strange. Especially if it's for people who are in big jobs or something, and they're like, "Oh, you don't act autistic." I'm like, come on, dude. It's 2015 or whatever it was. But enough ramblings. We will go on to what have we been this week? And first, I will point to Simone. Simone, what have you been doing this week?
Well, I've been writing more on my book,
Oh, awesome.
and I'm about a quarter done, and I've started to show it to people, and all the feedback I get is very positive.
That's good to hear.
And I rewatched The Good Place, which you heard so much about. So if you haven't started watching The Good Place, you really should, because we want to stop talking about it.
This is the official Good Place podcast. I've not watched any Good Place, but I'm the perfect host for the Good Place podcast that we are doing now.
You should watch the Good Place podcast. Well, you should also watch the Good Place podcast, but you should also just watch the Good Place because the latest episode is just brilliant.
I haven't seen or maybe I have. I'm gonna ask, is the latest one about the weather balloon?
No,
Okay, then I have not seen the latest one. I need to watch it.
let's just say it throws more shade than an eclipse.
Awesome. Shade. Well, I've been doing that, and I've been still, struggling with drawing. My plan is to go to art school or like an art program for 2 years, and then try to go to digital illustration. So I've been moving around a lot between schools. But
Mhm.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
School can be a bit stressy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's all I've done.
And we'll hand it over to Al. What have you been doing?
I've also been busy with school because I had another exam period, which went fine. I mean,
That's convincing.
it went well. I can't know for sure if I, got good grades.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I filled in every question, and like for French, you had to write a letter, and I put in, I used the correct form. I put in every point I had to make in the letter, so I won't lose points for that. But if I'm such a terrible speller and being bad at grammar in French, it might still not be, good. We'll find out. And the things with my art history test and my general history test is that you can know things, but you also have to explain why things happened the way they did, or read a source and be like, okay, this source writes about the French Revolution. Which part is it about and why? And then you have to be like, okay, am I interpreting the source, and am I replying with the am I giving the answer they want? Because it, it it's not always so concrete, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've lost points in philosophy exams where I talked about a certain philosophical theory, but it didn't actually name it, so I didn't get full points.
Hmm.
So, that kind of stuff. But I'm feeling pretty good about it. There was this one weird thing, and I've told this a million times, and Kim is probably getting sick of it, of hearing it. You talk about it, but it's just the weirdest thing. It happened. First of all, my exam French was a bit chaotic. I thought I applied at my school to use a laptop for tests because it's, especially when writing a letter, when I get distracted, sometimes I write down the wrong thing and then I have to start all over, which, if you're writing with pen and paper, it sucks. And my handwriting is kind of bad, which is also, for some autistic people, they have very bad fine motor skills, which is what I have. But I wasn't on the list for a laptop, which was weird because on Monday I was allowed to use a laptop, so it was a bit chaotic. But whatever, I ended up with a laptop, which was great. And for the test, you're allowed to use a dictionary, which makes sense because they're not going to force you to write a formal letter in French without being able to use a dictionary, right? But the thing is, the school always checks if you're like hiding notes in the dictionary. If you've written a cheat sheet. So nobody does it because the school always checks. Someone during the exam didn't have a cheat sheet in their dictionary. They had actually cut out a compartment and had a smartphone in their dictionary.
Oh my god.
I can't.
I'm assuming they might have done that as a joke.
Nope.
I can't believe people actually do stuff like that.
Well, how do they think they get away with it when they know everyone checks the books?
Exactly. And it's just so baffling because if you're gonna cheat, do something that you can hide easily and not have a phone. And also,
but
it's
like also like if they didn't check it, let's say they didn't check it, and you're opening the dictionary, wouldn't they notice at one point that you'd only be opening it on one page, and you'd be like putting your fingers on top of that one page a lot, and then like if you cut it out and it's an important word that you actually need to know in a section you might know for the then you're like, oh, my internet's slow, I wonder if I check this word, oh no, I cut all the words out from this point onwards. And
the silly thing is, first of all, we make the school exams, we make them in the regular classrooms, so it's a place where at most 30 people can sit, so it's pretty small, so teachers are gonna notice if you're acting strange.
Yeah.
And you only need a dictionary to be able to write a letter, because at least in the Netherlands, if you use a Dutch-French dictionary, all the way in the back are the irregular verbs. So so if you don't know how to put a certain verb in the past tense, you can look it up. And
yeah, that's very good.
There's even some standard sentences, because like when you end a formal letter in English, you put down sincerely, comma, your name, and in French there's like a standard sentence for it, but that was also in the dictionary, if you looked up sincerely, it's just gave the thing.
Hmm.
So very, very confusing. The excuse the student gave was, yeah, it's my brother's phone and or dictionary. So they were allowed to finish the test, but afterwards they had to have a talk with like the team leader of the study and like the surveying teacher. But yeah, it was one of the most bizarre things I ever saw happen during a test.
I hope one of the
Well,
first conversations they had is, that's a really bad way to cheat. If you're going to cheat, at least do it well. This is really dumb. Don't do that. And then they go to the proper suspension stuff.
Yeah. What did you want to say, Simone?
I was gonna say that I could almost actually buy that excuse, because I honestly couldn't seriously think that someone would think that cutting a phone into the book would work. So this could also have been a prank by a younger sibling.
Yeah.
True,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
if you pick up a dictionary, you know, because you notice immediately if you pick it up, because the weight feels different.
Yeah.
And you notice immediately when you at least open it for a bit, because
Or
all
you-
the pages they
Or
they
even
go
if it
wonky.
jingles, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it will jingle because there's something in it.
Yeah.
It's just weird. And even what's so, I don't know if it's actual irony or not, but we had a big storm on Thursday, like code red emergency storm.
Hmm.
And so the school had made a ruling that every student who wasn't able to make a test during that day would get an extra do-over, because they didn't want to force people or blame people who couldn't, make it to school because of
The weather, yeah.
because of the weather. So she just could have stayed at home and have an extra do-over anyway if she wasn't feeling up for the test.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all very bizarre.
Hmm.
Yeah, so strange.
It
But,
sounds.
yeah.
It sounds. I don't know what.
But aside from that, the letter went fine, and my art history test afterwards went fine as well. My math test went okay. I mean, I did enough to be able to get a passing grade. But it's my math exams are always at the worst time possible. My math exams are always from 5 in the afternoon to 7 in the evening, which is dinner time. So either you eat very early, or you're hungry during the test and eat very late, which is annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went okay. I have one test left to do, which is coming Wednesday, and it's the audio-visual test where we have to look at like French news programs and listen to French radio and give answers to like, hey, what does this person say about this subject? And it's all multiple choice, so that's fine. I really aced that one for English. With my English audio-visual test, I got 9.7 out of 10.
No. Good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well done.
Good stuff. Well done.
yeah. So, and I also started my new job, which is cool.
How's that going?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. What I'm going to do is there's like this tabletop and board game store in Rotterdam, and what I'm gonna do is set up. Basically, there's no public place in Rotterdam or surrounding Rotterdam where you can play D&D if you have a group. So you always have to play at home, and you don't always have the space for that, because you have to, like, for instance, if you live with your parents, you might not have a dedicated space, or maybe your parents don't want a crowd every week in your house, so you can't go anywhere. So I'm gonna help and promote that space as a place where people can play D&D, and also a place where people can learn to play D&D. And as part of that, a friend of mine, Kelly, they are an intern at a school, and for her study, she already developed a tabletop RPG aimed at kids. So they're gonna see what they can do about doing some sort of D&D light after school program.
Sounds
Pretty
cool.
ambitious,
Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
keep us updated.
Yeah,
how
of
it all
course,
goes.
of course. And if all goes well, I'll ask the store if they can sponsor the podcast.
Yeah.
Probably not, but I'll try
It's
anyway.
worth a try. It's worth a
It's
try.
worth a try. And what else have I been up to? I've played a bit more Persona 5, which is still excellent.
What part are you at?
I'm in the fourth castle.
Oh, okay. So you've
The-
still
the
got a bit
pyramid.
to go.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
I've-
I think the pyramid is one of the more tedious dungeons.
it is. There's the puzzles in the pyramid. They're like, when you have games and the only puzzle there is, oh, there's a locked door. I have to find the key. I found the key. Now I put the key in the lock. Now the door is open. It's that, but like 3 or 4 times in a row. It's not very interesting.
Yeah, and it's I mean it's the way they do with the plot, and it's
Mhm.
fine. But then it just feels like I love that game a lot, and I still still do. I feel like the
Mhm.
dungeon quality kind of erodes a bit after the first one, because I feel like the first
Mhm.
one's a really good introductory one, and
Mhm.
it doesn't really get interesting until I'll say like the last dungeon.
Mhm.
But you'll find the reason out. Also, like you will know. I think the first time you hear the dungeon theme, you will know.
Okay.
Because it's greatness. It's so good.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're still enjoying it, because I need to get back into it. I need to finish the last couple of bosses I have, but with these
Mhm.
with those games, I'm always like petrified I don't have enough resources to fight
Relatable.
it. Yeah, so I mean that's the only thing that always sticks in my craw of these games, is like you have to have the right thing at the right time, and you need to like have it have yourself leveled up enough, but then you don't want to go through the tedious grind and everything. It's a balancing act, especially with a game like Persona, where you have to do it at a certain time or else you failed the game,
Mhm.
essentially. This one, I think this one's different from the other ones, where like if you fail at a certain time, like you failed that stage.
Mhm.
Because I think Persona 4 does it a bit differently, and the other Personas do it a bit differently, where it's kind of that can still continue in the story, but you haven't done that certain thing. I could be wrong. So if people want to say that I'm utterly wrong and it's the other way around, then feel free to tell me in the comments.
And yeah, aside from that, my best friend told me she really enjoys the podcast. So shout out to Daniela for being a supportive listener.
Hooray!
And shout out to everyone who listens, because we really appreciate your feedback and your patronage, I guess,
Yeah, patronage.
which is a weird thing to say, but whatever.
It is. Yes, it is. I was gonna go for support, but that's fine.
Yeah, support. Words mean things. And yeah, I'm not really sure what else I can say. So yeah, I'm just chipping away and generally feeling better about myself for a bit. Therapy helps too, by the way. Shout out to therapy. Therapy rules. It might not always be fun, but it's always useful.
Hmm.
So, Simone, you Do you play? Do you like to play RPGs?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, because Owen said that he doesn't like to. He fusses about resource management, and I feel the same way because especially when I'm playing Pokemon or stuff like that, I
Like all the berries and potions and stuff.
like all the berries and potions. Like in the end, you're like, okay, this is the final battle, and I still have the 5 free potions I got from the start of the game because
Yeah.
I'd rather walk back, like 5 minutes back to the Poke Center than use a couple of potions, because you might need
Yeah.
it sometime.
Yeah, and I've actually stopped doing that because
Mhm.
I realize it's really reducing the fun of the game.
Mhm.
Because I used to do that, but I've stopped doing it. But then again, like me and Tim are playing. Let's see what it's called. I think it's called Destiny Originals. No,
Yeah.
Divinity Original Sin.
Divinity Original Sin 2. So
Mhm.
me and Tim are playing that, and like one of our characters, I think it's mine, the Red Prince, is
Mhm.
carrying like 2 ooze barrels in his inventory
Hmm.
because we want it just in case we need it.
Just in case you need not 1 barrel of ooze, but 2 barrels of ooze.
Yeah, like so I'm carrying that like in one of the characters' inventory, and we had it like from the start of the game.
Amazing.
Yeah,
But
it's
you know,
really heavy.
from what I've heard, that game is so expensive, and I don't mean in price, but huge, that you might get rewarded for, oh, you were the one person who actually thought of bringing those 2 things. Now here's all the gold and all the weapons. It might actually do that.
Yeah, it's like one funny thing about the game is that you don't have to always solve things the right way.
Mhm.
Like we went through a pus, like an area with poisonous blooms, and what
Mhm.
you're supposed to do is you're supposed to use the right element on them
Mhm.
to get them to deactivate.
Mhm.
But instead of doing that, we just teleported them away. so, so we just teleported them into a corner, and they're like just interacting with each other, and it was like we could move on.
That's amazing. I love that
Yeah.
games are what I think that's also a thing in Breath of the Wild. Like certain puzzles, they have like an official way to solve things, but they allow you to just mess around with physics and other interactions. And if you find a way that works for you, do the thing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
I like that.
Yeah. And it was like it was really fun to do that kind of stuff in the
Mhm.
game, and just
Yeah.
like teleport people away.
Yes.
And
we keep doing that, and it's fun.
in general, that's one thing I like about more powerful, systems and computers and stuff like that, because it allows developers to put that in the game. Because often with puzzles, you're not looking for a solution, you're looking for the logic of the developer. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, like for instance,
All,
let's
all
say
the logic of the
yeah.
genre.
Yeah, the logic of the genre, exactly. So let's say for like in a game you're in a dungeon and you have to find a key for a door. And in most games you have to find the actual key. But what if you were so strong you just pick up a boulder and bash through the door? Why not? It's nice when games give you more options for your thoughts because it automatically becomes more immersive.
Yeah.
Because I'm now thinking back to certain Zelda games where you got a giant hammer in a dungeon. Why would you ever need a key anymore for a lock if you have a giant hammer? It's literally called the Megaton Hammer. It can crush boulders, but it can't crush this door.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I like it when games allow that. So shout out to Breath of the Wild and Divinity Original Sin 2.
I'm trying to think of the last game that did that with me. I think it was probably something like Saints Row the Third,
Mhm.
when you could usually just like follow the game's policy of, oh, that's how you defeat the villain. You go up to him and like shoot him loads of times. But then sometimes it's like, oh, I've got a rocket launcher. I'm just gonna blow up this entire crowd. And he's in there, so he's dead because I've blown
That's
him
cool.
up.
Hey, by the way, have you heard about this ridiculous secret way to kill a boss in Wind Waker? Simone?
Which one? Which boss?
The plant boss.
No? Tell me.
Okay, you know how you can get sacred water from the Deku tree?
Yeah?
If you grab the sacred water and run to the boss and pour the sacred water on the boss, it instantly dies.
That's really clever.
Yeah, but nobody ever does that because, for those who don't know, the sacred water has, when you grab it, it goes off in like 30 minutes. You have a time limit. And
Yeah, so
usually
you-
when you go fight a boss, you just go do it and not go back, pick up an item and do something else.
Yeah.
And also, the plant boss has the worst wind puzzle before its entrance. It is terrible to get into that place.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're talking about it at the Deku
Yeah.
place where you have to jump off and use the Deku leaf, and I hated that part of the game because I would always fall off and have to do it all over again from the start.
That sucks.
Yeah, really sucks. But yeah, so like no one would just go back before like after you've found the boss room, no one would just go back outside and get the water and then have to do that again.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. You can just kill the boss the normal way.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, speaking of doing things the normal
Whoa.
way,
What?
yeah?
You forgot me.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm the host.
I'm so
here.
sorry.
Hey,
You're the host.
I'm taking over.
Yeah. Talk about yourself.
Do you just want to be the permanent host, Al? Can we just assemble this right now?
Nah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're an above average host.
Thank you. Oh yeah. So I missed last week's show because I was unwell. I couldn't really talk very long. I had a sore throat, occasional stuffy nose. My joints were all over the place. It just wasn't fun. Before I did, whilst I was unwell, I did watch, because Star Trek Discovery's back. It came back last Monday,
Okay.
and that continues to be a show I've seen rapid improvement on. And last episode was pretty good. No spoilers,
Yeah,
obviously.
Because I tried to watch the first episode with Kim, but it felt a bit contrived.
Yeah,
With someone being like, I have to do this thing because reasons.
Yeah.
And other people were like, you can't because reasons. And
Yeah,
it was
it-
like, what?
the first sort of 4 or so episodes on, it feels like a show that's find its direction, and then when it comes to episode, I'll say 5,
Mm-hmm.
with the time paradox, that's when the show begins to feel like Star Trek, and now it's gone to a
Excellent.
point where, again, I don't want to spoil very much, but like the directions it's going now is like really cool and really referential to not just its own universe but to Star Trek in general, which is
Cool.
pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I'm digging it, and then I also it's one of my not guilty pleasures because it's actually a good show. Grace and Frankie also came back.
I have to watch that again. I forgot it came back. Me and Kim love that show, but
Oh yeah, I also watched Gracie and Frankie.
awesome.
Yeah.
We watched like the first 4 episodes. It's finding its footing again. It kind of feels like. So it's not like LOL funny. I
Mhm.
don't know. I've put like laugh out loud, hilarious.
True.
But there is some like very good character work that's been
Yeah.
they're doing, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if it's not joke humor, if it's developing the characters it already has.
Exactly.
Especially since the people involved in the show are constantly going, make more episodes, because we're not sure how long we have left. Essentially, that's true. That's essentially what the cast has been saying. Is like, make more episodes. We might not live that long.
Yeah. What?
Go on.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to say that what I like about Grace and Frankie is that the pacing is very good because it starts off with like two people from very different societies, I guess, who are forced to live with each other, and instead of 2 seasons of them not getting along, they start to get along already in the first season. So it's not
Like they have a very good reason to get on very quickly.
yeah, true. And it's just nice and yeah, not so contrived, and it deals with things you don't see in other shows. So yeah, it what I like most about Grace and Frankie is that it feels very sincere. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's contrived or saying things because it's saying things, but it feels genuine to itself and what it
Mhm.
wants to talk about. Especially with issues concerning, like, there's not enough like decent television shows about old people, about what they go through, and how it's like to decide, I'm retiring now. Like, what does that mean for people?
Mhm.
Rather than, I'm on midlife crisis. Let me get my Ferrari. It's time to go golfing. I don't know what people do in their midlife crisis. He's my younger girlfriend. That's what television teaches me about the midlife crisis. Anyway, I don't know what that is. I hope my midlife crisis involves me becoming a furry. I don't know why. That'd be cool. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Simone, you still there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, you just being a bit quiet, so I wanted to check.
Uh, I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing really else. Yeah, I had to miss a whole bunch of my exams as well because of my illness.
Oh, that sucks.
But like your point earlier about exams, like had me think about how like my own exams, about how the questions on exams, especially like for somebody like me, like if you ask a question on exam, like if you say, for example, what does this word mean? And it just says, what does this word mean? In my head, I'm thinking, do I put it as an example?
Mhm.
Do I, have to put it in terms of something else? And that's something I wish exam papers would make clear, because I think,
True.
because like you're probably supposed to presume that's what they mean, but then if you put too much, they might like mark you down for putting too much instead of just answering the question. And there's no real way of logically finding that out,
I hear you.
so to speak, which is a pet peeve of mine. But that's always been a thing in exam papers. But it's also like my support was all over the place as well. And that's something, yeah, it was rather annoying, but then illness prevented me from finding out how the rest of that would have gone. So I'm trying to figure that out and trying to figure out what's next and everything like that. So there will be updates on next episodes, I presume, and I'll tell you more about updates of my life.
Likewise.
So is this a good time to link to our topic of the week, I guess? Because we've discussed a little bit briefly about it.
Yeah, that's good.
So we talked about exam papers, me and Al.
Mhm.
We might as well talk about what we found difficult at school, or what we find difficult at school in terms of support, or fellow students, or teachers, or whatnot. And I guess we'll go Simone first, about her own experiences.
Well, I have a thing where I can't stand the sound of music playing, of the radio, or loud, like dunka dunka music, like when it vibrates to the wall.
Mm.
It's and it becomes physically painful for me because I can feel it through my legs and arms, and it hurts. Like it's
Yeah.
excruciating pain, and that's probably the only thing.
Well, you would have hated my elementary school. Well, my elementary school was fine, mostly, but for the longest time, there was like this overground, above ground train track that went past it,
Oh, jeez.
and so every so often, like every, I'd say, couple of minutes, there'd be a train like zooming by, and since it was the line that basically connects the Rotterdam Central Station to everything south of Rotterdam Central Station,
Hmm.
there was a lot of train traffic. Now, thankfully, when I was at school there, they put it on the ground, so now the train just zooms under the city, which is much better. But yeah, it was pretty noticeable, and yeah, it probably didn't help with my concentration, which was already pretty poor at at elementary school. Did I ever tell you about why my concentration was poor at elementary school?
No.
Okay, so I was pretty good at, doing tests and stuff, but it was like schools in the Netherlands, they're allowed to use their own form of teaching mechanics, I guess. And ours was a school which used the theory of this Italian woman called Montessori, or Montessori school. And it's aimed at learning independently. So, and working, and also working together. And instead of, listening to and regurgitating things a teacher says, which means that instead of all the desks, tables where people sit looking at the teacher, they were grouped together, stuff like that. And you're usually free to work on whatever you wanted to do. You could read a book, you could do, Dutch language stuff, grammar stuff, you could do maths, and whenever you were done, you'd hand in your I'm sorry, I forgot the English word for things you make schoolwork in.
Notebook?
Yeah, you're right. You'd hand in your notebook.
Or
and
there's another word for it.
I think notebook is fine.
Yeah, notebook's fine for this
Yeah.
occasion. Yeah.
You'd hand in your schoolwork, and teacher would check it, and the next day they'd hand it back, and you'd see what you did well and what you did wrong. Problem is, there's not a lot of structure in that. And if I lack structure, I can't do anything. If I don't know when to do a thing, I won't do it. So when I was at school, I wasn't lazy, but it was very hard for me to start and finish a project. And yeah, so I was never held back because the results I did produce were good. But yeah, people started wondering what was wrong with me, or if something was wrong with me.
Hmm.
And I do think I had thought about this. I got tested by the school to see what was up, and instead of discovering my ADD and being autistic, they found that I was an only child, therefore I was spoiled, and my parents tried to put too much information in my head at the same time, and that's why I was slow. So that's not great.
That's a terrible assessment.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. That's what.
And
Makes no sense at all.
No.
it doesn't. And I think I got tested around 92, 94.
That kind of attitude was very prominent then.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm not surprised.
No.
But luck would have it, there's all the schools have to do like a standardized test to see what kind of level the students are at, and that's like an indicator to what kind of high school they have to go to. And those tests are all multiple choice. So those I did really quickly, excuse me, and I got a very good result in that. But that just goes to show that the way someone is asked questions can either yield great results or very bad results.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because if the test we had to do was only open questions, I think I would have done much worse.
Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah.
I get that. I'm glad you overcame your only childness
Yeah,
to get into a good good education.
yeah, it's yeah. And what you said with, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but sometimes I want to ramble too. Is when I'm learning, for some reason, instead of you know s- uh, instead of viewing what I learn as I got 8 things right and 1 thing wrong, it's the other way around. It's like I have to know everything, and I don't know this thing, and I got a hyper focus on that. And it's especially bad if I can't understand why I can't understand something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially with math, if I do two exercises and they're the same kind of math problem, and if I get one correct and the other one I get wrong, and I don't see the difference between the two because I think they should work the same way, I get such a hyper focus on, but it's the same thing, why doesn't it work? And it can ruin my whole day, just a tiny thing like that.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah. And sorry, can I talk a bit more about this? Because I think there's something that happens to all three of us, and maybe to some of our listeners as well, is that when we get a very good result, and last year went very well for me, we start seeing like our best ever as the standard.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, like, oh, it's not just with school but with everything. Like it's why I had trouble playing Splatoon, because I had one really good match where I was like in the flow and you know killing opponents and doing really well. That then to me becomes the, oh, I'm able to do this, so I should be able to do that all the time everywhere. And if I can't reach that result, it's not worth it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I have the same with school, but it's not fair to myself to expect that I would do as well in English, and I will do the same. I'll get the same results in math or French. You know,
Yeah.
because it's a different subject,
Yeah.
and maybe I had less things going on back then. So, but it becomes very very binary. I either reach the same results, or I'm a failure.
Hmm.
Like you don't have the mindset sometimes to think, oh, I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. And I'm good at
Yeah.
this, and I'm not good at that.
But by the way, we have 10 minutes left.
Oh yeah, we're talking. I'm sorry. So, Simone, what's it like for you to learn?
To learn. Well, I am very dedicated to learning. So when I do learn, like I've talked before about learning to draw and stuff, that
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it on my own. I need a tutor
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise it won't get done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have trouble. No one has ever taught me how to learn. Like not at home. I didn't have a very supporting home family. Like my mom didn't give a crap about my education. She didn't have the energy. So no one has taught me how to study. No one has taught me how to learn. So without a tutor, I don't know what I'm doing. So I can't self-learn something. I have a lot of projects in my past that have failed because I
Mhm.
can't self-teach myself. That's just not gonna happen. Which is not weird because I have a learning disability. So that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's understandable. Owen,
Geez. Yeah, I'm gonna
what's
try.
wrong?
I'm gonna have to try and summarize an entire history. 'Cause thanks, Al.
Sorry.
Um, I think for me, I like to know. Like I'm kind of like you, Al. I like structure. I like knowing different like knowing how to do stuff. And I am very bad at. I can be bad at sort of organizing myself to do things at a certain time, and I'm very. It's not that I give up on stuff easily. It's just I want to at least feel like I'm doing well, and if I'm not doing well, then I get like anxious and worried and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been lucky enough to have enough support to be able to get me through some stuff, and be able to get work in and things like that. But also I'm trying to find the best way of putting this really quickly. But also I've never been somebody in school that's like anti. Well, it took me a while to get out of my shell, but then I was always good with my teachers and stuff, and communicative and honest about how I was feeling about stuff and my anxieties and stuff, because it's very easy in school to like follow the crowd and be like, oh, this teacher is this and this teacher acts like this, but you don't kind of realize until later that those they're people as well. I mean, some of them might be assholes, but then some of them might be like decent people, and it's much easier in school with everybody else to have cliques and real structured personalities. Not really able to get out of that. So that was really helpful. But I do have a funny story. It's a very quick story where I was doing English and I was expected to get a B, but I got a C. So when I was going from high school to sixth form, I went to one of the English teachers I had, and I didn't realize this was an insult at the time. Oh, not an insult, but I didn't realize what the connotations of the question was. So he was asking me, do I read books? Now, at the time, I was an extensive reader, and I read a lot of books. So I was like, yeah, I read a lot of books. And I used to get out stuff from the library and stuff. But then in hindsight, like, my mom was really insulted. Like, she did a lot to hold herself from saying something. She was with me to check the sixth form. But at the time, the reason they made me think that was because I didn't do well, and I wasn't doing well with like Shakespeare or whatever when I was reading other books by other authors. So that was always a weird thing, and that helped my decision to go to sixth form college instead, because the person I knew at the sixth form college said, oh, no matter if you got straight Fs, we would have let you in. That's sort of like guaranteed. And it was a really, like, I'll discuss this another episode. It was a really important time in my life to go to that sixth form college. And since we have very minimal time left, might as well wrap it up for this week. Simone, where can people find you?
You can find me at Madame Plumpet at Twitter.
Al, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter as well, over at Badasperger.
And you can find me at Owen Mason, EOINMASON. and you can check out the GeekAut Twitter, which is GeekAut Official, GeekAut Facebook, GeekAut Official. You might as well sign up to the Twitch page. I don't know when the stream is coming up, but it will be soon. It's GeekAut Official as well. Yeah, Facebook, Twitter. I think I've got everything. Oh, you want to email us? Email us at geekaut@gmail.com. I think it's geekaut@gmail.com.
No, it's GeekAut Official.
It's GeekAut Official, of course it is. geekautofficial@gmail.com. We are always looking for your questions. If you want to ask us anything, or give us an idea for a topic, because we're rapidly running out of topics. I know, we're three autistic people with topics.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask, by the way, for the host for a topic for next week, because we didn't get to it this week. Shall we discuss sensory overload or things to do with your senses and autism next week?
I have an idea for that. How about we do it as a poll? Let's get our listeners involved.
That's
Sure.
We'll
cool
put a
too.
poll. We'll
So-
put two
Let's have a
topics
poll.
up.
Awesome.
And it'll go up after. So by the time the podcast goes up, the poll would be already up as well.
Well,
So
yeah,
I think-
thank you so much for listening, and you'll hear us next week.
Who's
Yes.
hosting next week?
Thank
I
you.
think it's. Is it?
It's me.
It's you.
Simone.
Simone is hosting.
Yay,
next week.
Simone. Awesome.
So we shall see you then, and have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.